Well, you wanted receivers, and we got a double feature for you here on our breaking news segment. First ever time we've done two commits at the same time. Thankfully, Ryan Snyder, they are at the same position. Penn State getting a pair of receivers. So fill us in what's going on with Marques Hagans and his push this week, getting a ton of talent at his position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a matter of time. He's been in a good position with all these guys for, I don't know, it feels like 2+ months now, at least going back to April or so. Penn State obviously added Tyseer Denmark the other day. That was one that I don't want to say came out of the blue because we knew there was always conversation, but the visit and the flip was pretty quick. But now he's landing two players that we've felt for a while should end up at Penn State. Of course, Josiah Brown out of Long Island, Holy Trinity is where he's based out of. 4-star prospect on 300. All the accolades there. Josiah's, I think, pretty much the second best wide receiver in the region. Keelan Adams, of course, from Virginia is still kind of the higher ranked one, but Josiah's not too far behind him there. And then you have Peter Gonzalez, of course, Central Catholic out of Pittsburgh. Peter doesn't have the kind of rating that Josiah does, but I'm pretty confident that when these testing numbers and things are reorganized, that's going to change. Right now, he's a 3-star prospect. And on 3, 24/7 and 24/7, I think has already. I think they may have bumped him up a little bit after some testing numbers. I might be wrong with that. Actually, they may have just had him higher. But either way, I mean, he's an 88 at 24/7. He's an 86 at on 3. And I think when things get shuffled and we go through these testing numbers and things like that, which we did not have on Peter Gonzalez, and of course he's coming off an ACL as well. I'd be pretty surprised if Peter doesn't move up a good bit in these ratings. So 2 more wide receivers. You got 3 total now if you're Penn State. And I think you're looking at least 1 or 2 more, but we'll get into that down the road.
How do you feel, before we get into it, Tyseer Denmark you mentioned, and now Josiah Brown, Peter Gonzalez, how do you feel about this group of receivers? Do you think it fits the what Penn State was going after in this cycle, or is the full complement needed to know and to gauge how they're trying to build this class?
Well, I mean, we've been talking about the longest time Penn State needs true difference makers, and not that these guys can't be that, but when you're looking at who are difference makers right now, that's still Nick Marsh and Chance Robinson in my eyes. Those are the guys who are a little more pizzazz, the bigger splash plays, bigger numbers, those kind of things. That's why I think that's remains kind of the focus. You got to get one of those guys, I feel like, and I feel like Josiah, Tyseer, and Peter are all similar to the receivers we've seen at Penn State over the last couple of years, and one of these guys is going to shine, I'm sure. Maybe all 3 of them do. We'll see. If you're just looking at averages, usually one of them really pops, and the other 2 are, can contribute, but they just need those difference makers. But I also feel like, we keep talking about those difference makers. We talk about Drew Aller. Drew Aller's only going to be here for 2 years too, so I don't know how these guys are going to help, and that's why you need the guys out of the portal to make that splash this year. But I mean, I think, look, Penn State always looks for solid testing numbers. They're always looking for track times, all those things. You have that here with these 2 guys, both consistent, sub 11s. We'll get into that in a bit. But, I think I really kind of feel the more I've learned on Peter Gonzalez, the more I really like. And the more I watch his film, it's not like flashy film, but it's just like consistent film.
And I don't know about that. Great. I think there's a little bit of flash. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think that's the thing is like, we'll talk about it later, but his film was incredibly unique because of his situation. So we're going to try and get into both of these guys in a timely manner today, but we're talking about 2. So if we go a little bit long and you're, in and out, you're one of those people that can't handle a 17-minute video, I apologize. But I want to talk about these guys because I think they're very interesting. Start, as you mentioned, with Josiah Brown. We'll give you his numbers again here on screen for you that are watching. Industry ranking 252, so a top 300 player in the on 300 and in the industry ranking. He's an athlete according to on 3. He's not the 419th athlete. He's the 19th overall athlete. Apologies for the typo there. And one of the top 2 players in New York. So those testing times, when I hear track athlete, and we're talking about Josiah Brown, one of the first things I'm looking for is what does he play like? And I think you'll notice on his highlight film, especially, this is not just a track athlete. This is a complete football player. So tell us a little bit about how Penn State prioritized Josiah Brown throughout this recruiting process.
Well, I mean, for a long time, it feels like it was it was Penn State and Rutgers, Penn State, Rutgers, Penn State, Rutgers, and he kept getting all these other offers. But it never felt like he was going to leave the region. And Georgia piqued his interest. Of course, Fran Brown, who's down there, he has ties to New Jersey. And I think that relationship had a big impact. But that official visit didn't happen. Of course, he did take an unofficial visit back in January. And he went to Notre Dame last year, went to Syracuse once or twice. But again, he's taken 12 visits to Penn State and Rutgers. He's taken 3 or 4 visits elsewhere, and then it's like pretty much 1 to each school. So it's always felt like he's going to stay in the region. There was a point last year, I forget when it was, either I want to say June, July, something like that. Maybe even a little before, after. There was a point last spring or summer. I'll say that where Josiah was close to committing to Rutgers, and one of his teammates committed, and I think he got excited and he kind of wanted to do something special with his teammate, and it all of a sudden went from like, oh wow, he's going to commit to Rutgers tomorrow, and then just stopped. And I think obviously he realized he was rushing things there. Mm-hmm. So that was big for Penn State. Not that him committing would have maybe changed a whole lot. Penn State would have still stayed on him pretty hard. So he did take an official visit to Rutgers, though. Of course, that was the first week in June 2nd to the 4th. Came back, took an official visit to Penn State the 16th to the 18th, and as we said, he was planning to take an official visit to Georgia, and that fell through. I assume Georgia's just kind of stacking up on other guys and probably had to move forward. So this works out well for Penn State. I mean, he's been, there was a point where I had Josiah as maybe Penn State's top wide receiver target, and that was also when Nick Marsh was already committed, and Chance Robinson was looking a little less likely than he is now, although I still think it's going to be hard to get Chance Robinson. But I mean, my point here is Josiah's been a pretty consistent top 5 wide receiver target for Penn State really throughout this entire cycle.
Yeah, and so there's track times. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's a big part of what you mentioned in terms of his recruiting. So track times are something that I think are interesting. They're still pretty new to me in terms of gauging speed level, but in terms of consistency, I don't think you can question anything about what Brown can do on the track in terms of speed. So can you take us through what you see in terms of the numbers that he put up this past spring?
Yeah, I mean, just this year he's got a variety, kind of a range there. His first 2 times of the year were like 11.06, 11.14, something like that. But he's just consistently got faster. Then he ran a 10.7, 10.75. He has 1 or 2 others in the 11 range, a 10.9 range. I mean, the point here you need to know is his range has always been kind of like 11 to 10.7. So I think you can consistently say, he's a 10.8, low 10.9, that's where he's consistently run. You do got to love seeing that in the state championship. He ran a 10.79, which was one of his best times the entire year. I believe he finished 2nd or 3rd. I think he finished 3rd this year in New York's, Division II in the state championship there. But certainly quality speed there, no doubt about that. And as you said, though, I mean, he's not a track guy. I don't look at him as a track guy. I do look at him as a true football player more than just speed.
Yeah, if you check out his film, and I apologize, we have a bit of a brief clip here, but the one thing that I wanted more from his film, kind of talking about what he is as a football player, is I wanted more receiver clips, because half of one of the reasons he's an athlete in the On3 database, I would imagine, is half of the time you're looking at him as a safety. So willing to hit, willing to go over the middle and get hit. Good route runner. I think, when you look at his speed metrics, it's a lot about efficiency. So when you're looking at track athletes, one of the things that they know how to do, surprisingly, is run. So their motions are super efficient. He's elusive without being dynamic like Tyseer Denmark, but still is able to cut and run and get to a high speed pretty quickly. So when you're looking at the building blocks of a receiver and what you're looking for out of that Z position of a guy that's a great route runner, has great speed, and can get open and utilize space in the football field, that's what you're talking about with Josiah Brown, who's 5'11". I forget what he is, about 170. So you've got some room to grow, maybe 190, 195 as kind of the peak of what he might be. And that's a really good receiver in terms of the balance of speed, physicality. There's a lot of unknowns, though. We'll dig more into his film in terms of some of the more nuanced things on a full game analysis, but you don't get a whole lot from his highlight film, especially of great route running, in terms of exhibiting these, wow, that was a great cut, or anything like that. Or his hands, looks like he doesn't have an issue tracking the ball. Doesn't look like he has a problem with his hands, but you don't really know. Like, there aren't highlight level catches. You don't see some advanced level things in terms of hands and stuff like that. So great building blocks. I think, a player that's properly rated in the on 300, maybe not a top 150 player, but also this is where Penn State shines, is finding these guys that are a little bit underrated and have a lot of skill to develop, a lot of upside with Josiah Brown. Speaking of underrated and a guy that has upside, Peter Gonzalez, 6'2", 198, commits to the Nittany Lions. Take us through Peter in his journey from Central Catholic to Happy Valley.
Yeah, it's a great story. Peter, I mean, Peter's been coming to Penn State so much over the last 2 years, right? And, it's been so obvious that this is an offer he really wanted. Has a quality sophomore year and then tears his ACL in a 7-on-7. I don't know if it was a tournament or some sort of 7-on-7 event. I believe it was last January. So not this past January, but January before that, excuse me. And, at the time, he kept getting offers, right? I mean, I think Penn State actually offered like a month or two after that. And a lot of schools offered, but it was always, we think you got the potential, but we got to see how you respond from this. So yeah, he missed the first couple games of this past season, 2022 season, excuse me. But does put up some good stats. I think he played 7, 8, 9 games, something like that. But it was always from the schools were recruiting, they always wanted him to camp. They always wanted to see how he rebounded. There was always a question on his speed too. And, full credit to Peter, man. He went out and ran track this year to prove those times. And then obviously of course, he goes to the UC report camp. And I think everybody knows about, I think it was like a 4.45, 4.54, something like that. Runs that at the UC. Yeah, runs that. And that was a game changer. And, he ran a 10.86 too, I believe, 100-meter time this past year, which is really good as well. So, this is just a guy who, I think, like, first off, on the field or off the field, he's awesome. Like, Peter easily becomes one of my favorite guys in this class. Just personality and character, leadership. Like, I mean, he's going to be great in the locker room. He's going to be a fan favorite without a doubt. And then, just a guy who's really earned it, right? And a guy who probably would have maybe had more offers. Who knows, if that injury doesn't happen. But the injury scares a lot of schools. And, Peter says, screw this. Like, I'm going to go out and show you what I'm about. I'm going to go out and prove that I'm still the athlete or a better athlete than people thought. And, man, I mean, obviously he has that UC report camp that stands out. And then he comes to Penn State and does it again, runs another I think it was a 4.45 at UC report, and then he ran a 4.5 at Penn State, which is a little bit slower, but that's might as well be the same thing. But what's kind of grabbed my eye from that camp wasn't necessarily the 40 time as much as it was the shuttle times, as much as it was, the broad jumps. I mean, he broad jumped over 10 feet. Triple was like 32, which was, obviously excellent. So, there's just a lot to like there. I mean, it was all around. All of his testing was like, oh, wow, that this is pretty special here. So, when I look at his rating right now, which is like laughable, actually, kind of looking at where On3 has him rated. I mean, this is, he's absolutely, without a doubt, when you look at On3's ratings, he is without a doubt the most underrated player in this class right now, and it's not even close.
There's a lot of those in this class. So that's a really interesting.
Yeah, but now Peter is without a doubt. Like, we've said that about other guys, but it's not even close. I mean, like, I don't even want to repeat where On3 has him rated right now. You guys go on the site and check it out. Like, it's bad. So we got to get that fixed. And, that's on me as much as anybody, not pounding Charles with that. Because Charles is obviously, he's watching literally like 1,000+ players. So that's on me. I got to do a better job of just kind of scouting the region and sharing those kind of things. And I always thought Peter was good, but I mean, I didn't know that these kind of testing numbers were going to pop up. And now that they have, though, we're going to make sure that gets fixed.
Yeah. So I want to dive into a couple of things, because we talked a little bit earlier about, like, it's not the flashiest film in the world. I would say from a hands perspective, it is flashy.
Yeah,
He's got, I mean, his first catch here, you can see on his highlight film, there's a lot of this. He's a big-bodied receiver, and he's got a great catch radius. And you mentioned the thing that stands out to me, that broad jump of 10 feet. He's explosive. He is, like, when he makes a snap decision with where he wants to go, it is bang. He's moving. But then you watch him run and you go, is he fast? And you look at him and he's a little bit bigger. And obviously, when you tear your ACL, you can't condition the same way. So is he a big-bodied guy? I had people ask me maybe he can play tight end. Looking at him in person when he was at Penn State's camp, definitely not a tight end body. He is a big-bodied physical receiver. And when you tell me you got somebody that's 6'2", 200 in high school, has a 10-foot broad jump, and runs a 4.5, now we're getting into like these are special characteristics for a guy that has it plays as big as he does. Now, he doesn't catch every contested catch. There's times I think he can high point the ball just a little bit better, but that's any receiver. Like you're not going to catch 100% of those. And his as you can see through his concentration through the catch point, this is a thing Penn State really needs, as we talked about getting bigger. And it's not just having size, because you can have big guys that play small. It's the characteristics of a big-bodied receiver that is going to, in some situations you see on here on this highlight film, just push a dude over and keep running. Like, I like some of the stuff, even if it is a foul. The ability to play big. So you got all of these things that you're looking for, and you add the speed. So for me, like, you look at his film and you go, is he fast? It's the one thing I want to know. There's really two things: his speed, and then the question that I think we still need to answer is how does he move laterally? Because you can see a lot of what he does for Pittsburgh Central Catholic is he runs a lot of vertical routes. He doesn't run as many, full field routes where he's running the full route tree, hard in cuts on an in cut or an out route, things like that. He's doing a lot of this vertical stuff, and that's major. But, you're questioning, is he the DK Metcalf type, or is he going to be kind of a guy that can run a full route tree? Watching him in person, there was still a little bit of rust, a little bit of hesitancy when he was cutting on that knee, where he's cutting, internally, I would say. I think it's his right knee. So if he's lining up on the left, that wasn't as clean. But he does have those explosive change of direction skills. From an acceleration standpoint, it would just really be like the agility metrics. And at that point, I don't care. Like, from a film perspective, you've got so many other good qualities that you can overlook not being a complete wide receiver, especially for a guy that you're finding in your backyard that is super underrated and is not getting a lot of national attention. I'm not saying that he's a national prospect, but these are the qualities of a guy that might be that kind of explosive, big-bodied superstar type receiver, and whatever version of that he can give you, I believe, like watching his film now and seeing him run, he can do that. So, Penn State going after Nick Marsh, going after Chance Robinson, that would be, you're getting 2 of those guys, 3 of those guys. Then you have really high percentage chance that one of them turns into the receiver Penn State has needed, that kind of big-bodied guy. Well, they've got one in the chamber with Peter Gonzalez, which at the beginning of this, you might have thought, is he that guy? Is he not that guy? I think we can confirm that he has a lot of those characteristics and those talents that project to higher end production if everything clicks in place for him. And I think Penn State did a great job of getting a guy like this and staying with it and being consistent with a guy that they saw something with.
For sure. There's a lot of these guys in this class, man, as you said. I mean, I was just talking to someone last night, and I'm going off topic a little bit, but like they were just raving about Egan Boyer and how we have Egan Boyer like not properly rated. So that was just one example. I mean, you can say that there's I can't wait to talk to Terry Smith about Antoine Belgrave Shorter. And obviously this is down the road. They have to wait till we sign so we can do it. But like just talking to people close to Belgrave Shorter, they're like, I mean, they're basically relaying Terry's message to me, which is like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is one of Terry's top guys. That was another conversation I had with someone a week or two ago. But between Grunkmeyer and Luke Reynolds, things are getting sorted out, right? Those guys are certainly moving up. And I think Peter Gonzalez is going to be one of those guys as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big part of the Penn State team ranking. You talk about getting a 3-star versus a 4-star. There's a lot of guys in this class, and I think you're right that now Peter Gonzalez jumps to the top list of, wow, this is an underrated dude. There's a lot of underrated dudes in this class. So, you just listed a whole bunch of them. We'll see how all that shakes out in the recruiting ranking. But most importantly, Ryan, aside from the recruiting rankings, I think that a lot of these guys are good football players, and Penn State is putting together a really solid class of 2024. Anything you want to talk about as we get out of here on Josiah Brown and Peter Gonzalez?
Not really on those two, man. Just for what next week is, be ready. We've got a lot of guys Plan to commit here over the next week or two. Obviously, July 1 setting up to be a massive day. David Poly, DeAndre Cook, Josiah Hawkins. Josiah's on campus this weekend, so we'll get a better feel for that situation. But we talk all the time about the dominoes are going to fall and all that. And if there's a week for like surprise commitments, it's this upcoming week, because these are the guys who didn't really set a date. They're done with their visits. They're ready to get this over with. And then
Liam Andrews.
Yeah, there'll be guys potentially. There'll be guys in July who like set a date and do kind of, it's usually when you get to July, those are the guys that set the date and you know what's going on. It's those guys that last week of June that are just like, screw this, like, let's get this over with. So yeah, we're going to be on call next week. Don't leave your house, Steve Frank.
Yeah, well, I'm a hermit, so I never do that. So that's great. So Blue White Illustrated here on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe here so you don't miss any of that breaking news content. Subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com so you can get all the insider information, and you'll know even before the video goes live what's going on, because our insiders are plugged into what's happening, and you should be as well. If you want to know about the future of the Nittany Lions, it's recruiting, and recruiting is very important to whether or not this team consistently maintains the level of talent they have right now heading into the 23 season that everyone is so excited about. So, recruiting's important. Ryan's important. Thank you for your time, Ryan. We'll be back with more breaking news here on YouTube when it happens. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you then.